Have you ever felt guilty for saying no? Maybe worried that setting a boundary would seem like you're being selfish or even rude. If so, you are not alone. So many of us struggle with boundaries, not because we don't know what we need, but because we fear others and how they'll react. So, for today's video, I'll show you how to set boundaries with confidence, without guilt, and without feeling like a jerk. So let's dive in. Why do we even feel guilty about boundaries? Seems like it's something we should have learned how to do when we were really, really young. And instead of learning how to set boundaries, we almost learn the opposite: how to not have them at all, how to people please, how to make sure everyone else around us feels comfortable and safe, even at the cost or expense of ourselves. So, first, I think it's important that we understand that there are six core human needs that guide our lives. And I remember when I learned about these, I was stunned. Makes sense. But recognize to know ourselves starts to shift the power that we have over ourselves, over our lives, and how we are responding versus reacting to those around us. So, our six core human needs are certainty, uncertainty, or variety, which is interesting. So we've got the first dichotomy. We have significance, we have connection or love, growth, and then contribution. So feeling like we have purpose or value in this world. And what's interesting about those pieces is there's also the three fears that really drive from here. And that is the fear of judgment, the fear of rejection, and the fear of not being worthy of love. So keep that in mind as we're going through boundaries and what it is that drives our behaviors when it comes to them. These needs are like our building blocks of our entire existence. They shape our decisions, our relationships, and really our overall well being. First, why do we feel guilty for boundaries? Well, the fear of rejection. We've been conditioned to believe that saying no will equal losing love. And you can see it. In a world where instant gratification is being offered at every corner, saying no feels like if I'm not gratifying somebody, they're going to leave me to somebody that will. And they might. But here's the key: you saying yes also doesn't mean that it equals love. It means convenience. And that is not the same thing. We are not looking for attachments in our life. They will not fulfill those needs that we have. As a matter of fact, attachments will fuel the fears. What we're looking for is connection. Remember when I said one of our core needs was connection and love, not attachment. And it's the attachments that cause dysfunctional relationships, that undermine the feeling of safety within ourselves and within our lives, in each of our relationships, and just in the world in general. Another one is people pleasing. So when we prioritize other people's comfort over our own, we're self-abandoning. It's really important. We don't recognize that many of us have a fear of betrayal. And that fear stems from us betraying ourselves. We betray ourselves more than anyone else betrays us. We betray ourselves every single time we say yes when we wanted to say no, or we say no when we really want to say yes. We betray ourselves every time we decide to be somebody that we think we're supposed to be versus the light that is inside of us. Who are you really? This world doesn't need a bunch of carbon copies. This world needs each of us to show up as our own unique individual self. Will there be some crossover? Absolutely. And that's okay. But we don't need to make friends with people that only agree with us. And we don't need to change our attitudes or our answers to please those people, because again, people pleasing is what cultivates attachments and not connection. So these behaviors actually do not give us what we really desire. They actually push us further away from it. And the other reason that we fear our boundaries is false beliefs. So we think boundaries push people away, but in reality, they actually build stronger relationships. And I'm speaking from absolute personal experience. I was terrible at setting boundaries. I was terrified. I used to people please all the time. I felt awkward and uncomfortable, and it was very difficult for me to even be able to answer the question, what do you want? What do you like? And so this belief that we're going to push people away or they're not going to like us. When in truth, once I started to learn boundaries, learn who I was and why my boundaries were, I started to cultivate deeper relationships. So you can think of boundaries like fences, and they're not walls. It's like good fences make good neighbors. Well, strong boundaries, healthy boundaries make super strong, healthy relationships, deeper relationships. I promise you. So, what are the 3 steps to guilt free boundaries? So, first, I think it's important that we understand that we either need to redefine, or as I think of reframing, what boundaries really mean. We started with our fences. So, boundaries aren't about keeping people out, they are not walls, they're not blockades. They are about keeping our energy safe, and they're really about really self-respect and even respect for the other person. Because let's be honest with each other. What does it really say about the other person when we say I can't have boundaries because of them? What is it saying about ourselves? So first and foremost, our boundaries in our energy world would be linked heavily with our third energy center or our solar plexus, our third chakra. Who am I and who am I not? So, in our energy centers, our 7 main, our chakras, think of them as transformers of information, and they transform big, broad information from the world all around us into our physical world. And our first energy center at our root, tip of the tailbone, coccyx, perineum, is linked with our safety and survival, as well as infancy and our family of birth. Our second energy center is linked with creativity, playfulness, our childhood. And as it matures, we move into sensuality, not just eating to survive, but enjoying food. So where we're in safety and survival in our first, we're starting to enjoy life as we move into our second. And then as we develop into our third, linked with adolescence, it's also linked with who am I and who am I not? Who am I within the world I'm creating? In our second center, we're cultivating relationships, we're cultivating friendships, we're cultivating abundance in the world all around us. And in our third center, we are understanding who am I within this world that I am creating that I call my life. And so boundaries really link into the third center. When we have strong boundaries that are healthy, we have a strong third center. And if you think of your energy centers, downward causation is how we're born, upward causation is how we grow. So we're born, we manifest into this world, and then we start to grow. And the energy centers develop and continue to mature as we go, but we really explore and develop within them. And so in that third center, we're building on the foundations. With the solid foundation in the first, but feel safe in my body in this life, then I can create. It's easier to create and play when we feel safe. Makes sense. If I'm playful and I'm creating, then I'm feeling safe. Then I'm going to be able to feel more confident, which is the confidence center, our power center. In our third, who am I and who am I not? Who am I in these friends that I'm creating? Can I have these friends without necessarily having the exact same opinion as them, as dressing the same? We don't have to like everything the same to have great friendships. So what we're doing when we're in our boundaries, when we're cultivating them, is really hitting into that third center. Who am I and who am I not? And when you think of that center, even in its location, it's linked with our digestion. So, what am I going to process and hold into my body, and what am I going to release and process out of my body? It's linked with our immune system. Who am I and who am I not? Germs and viruses. So, we see these energy centers, these intelligence centers, acting out in physical form as well. think of the second center of creativity is also linked to our reproductive organs. Our first of safety is also linked with our legs, our feet, fight and flight, foundation, grounding into the world, as well as fornication. So the reproduction of creating new life, all linked, and they all make sense when you look at our centers. So when we look at what do boundaries mean, that's what they mean. Who am I and who am I not? What works for me? What doesn't work for me? And they're there to really protect. I'm always cautious of saying protect. I prefer the word respect. They're there to respect my values. That's what boundaries are for. We often think of them as a way to protect our energy. And we say that often when we're in a fight and flight or prey and predator mode, where we are in survival or victim. But as these get healthier, as we get healthier and stronger within ourselves, we can reframe this from I'm protecting my peace to I'm respecting my peace. So keep in mind that reframe as well. So instead of saying, I'm being selfish, we want to reframe into this as a respect. It's a self-respect to have good boundaries. And two, we want to set our boundaries with love and not fear. So I will say over and over and over again, when we're in a state of fear, we are out of alignment with our soul, with ourself. And this is vitally important. There is no mistake that my company is called Practical Spiritualism. Why was it given that name? Well, first off, I downloaded it. I didn't come up with it on my own. And two, because everything comes down to practical work. We want to take, and ism means essence. So it's the essence of spirit that resides within you and how it practically is explored in our co-creation of our life every single day. And so I want you to keep that in mind, because when we're in a state of love, we're in co-creation with ourselves. We are acting from the essence, that spark, the light that lives within our heart. And when we're creating from fear, fear is the illusion of separation. What do I mean by the illusion? That you could ever be separate from that essence, from that spark, which you cannot be. The light is always within you. It's like the sun. It's always shining. Even on a cloudy day, you just can't see it. And as we heal our wounds and let go of our hurts, our dramas, our traumas, then it's like clearing out the clouds so that we can experience every single moment of the day that light that resides within us. And so when we are setting our boundaries, we want to do it from love and not from fear. So it may be something along the lines of, instead of, no, maybe it feels like I love spending time with you, but I also need some quiet time to recharge. So boundaries they don't need to be harsh. As a matter of fact, they really shouldn't be. They're not ultimatums. They're not commands. They're not demands. People get to go ahead and be themselves. There's nothing you can do about it. Your project, your only project, is you. And so we always want to come to a place where when we're setting our boundaries, that we're doing it from this place of love. When I'm asked, how do I set boundaries? How do I communicate my boundaries with people? My recommendation is not to talk about it from the language of boundaries, but instead talk about it from the language of our values. That cultivates a deeper connection, a deeper, more intimate place with the people around us. We don't want to justify or explain ourselves. When we are justifying ourselves, it's the opposite of self-respect. It's like saying, I'm not really worthy of having this boundary, so let me over-explain it to you. You don't need to do that. And again, please note, this is a habit that we are taught to do. Right from the very beginning, we're told it's polite. You don't need to. You don't need to at all. You don't owe a 5-minute explanation. It can simply be, because we're going from love and not from fear, not from anger, not from defense. So it could be, I can't make it, but thank you so much for the invite. I appreciate it. We don't have to explain why. And that is really, really important. You do not need to justify yourself. If this helped, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. What's one boundary that you are committed to this week? And if you haven't already, please join my private Facebook community, the Awakening Circle, to cultivate deeper community and connections. And for those that are ready to go deeper into your boundaries, Boundaries 101 is now open. It's a 6-week coaching program, and it's designed to help you with guilt-free boundaries. 6 weeks, they drop every single week. You work your way through them, but then you also get 3 months of boundary calls where you get live coaching calls where we can discuss boundaries, struggles that you're having within your relationships. And when you sign up for the program, their dates get given to you for those calls as well. You can use the code RISING300 to save $300 on that program. Thank you so much for joining me today on this journey towards self-sovereignty and holistic wellness. Remember that you are your own healer, and every single step takes you towards empowerment. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone that might need it, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights and more inspiration. Leave a comment below about your experiences and any questions that you might have. I love to hear from you. And if you'd like more from me, please check out my blog or my website, practicalspiritualismco.com. Link is in the bio. And you can follow me on all the socials under Dawn Elgin, as well as Practical Spiritualism. I see the light in you, and it is brilliant. Until next time, stay bold, stay loving, and keep embracing your journey. Brightest of blessings.